So. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قام الصلاة قد قام الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله وكتاب الذي نزل على رسوله وكتاب الذي أنزل من قبل ومن يكفر بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر فقد ضل ضلالا بعيدا. إن الذين آمنوا ثم كفروا ثم آمنوا ثم كفروا ثم ازدادوا كفرا لم يكن الله ليغفر لهم ولا ليهديهم سبيلا. بشر المنافقين بأن لهم عذابا أليما. الذين يتخذون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين أيبتغون عندهم العزة فلله العزة جميعا. لقد نزل عليكم في الكتاب أن إذا سمعتم آيات الله يكفر بها ويستهزأ بها فلا تقعدوا معهم حتى يخوضوا في حديث غيره إنكم إذا مثلهم. إن الله جامع المنافقين والكافرين في جهنم جميعا. الذين يتربصون بكم فإن كان لكم فتح من الله قالوا ألم نكن معكم وإن كان للكافرين نصيب قالوا ألم نستحوذ عليكم ونمنعكم من المؤمنين فالله يحكم بينكم يوم القيامة ولن يجعل الله للكافرين على المؤمنين سبيلا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إن المنافقين يخادعون الله وهو خادعهم وإذا قاموا إلى الصلاة قاموا كسالى يراءون الناس ولا يذكرون الله إلا قليلا مذبذبين بين ذلك لا إلى هؤلاء ولا إلى هؤلاء ومن يضلل الله فلن تجد له سبيلا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا الكافرين أولياء من تريدون أن تجعلوا لله عليكم سلطانا مبينا إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار ولن تجد لهم نصيرا إلا الذين تابوا وأصلحوا واعتصموا بالله وأخلصوا دينهم لله فأولئك مع المؤمنين وسوف يؤتي الله المؤمنين أجرا عظيما ما يفعل الله بعذابكم إن شكرتم وآمنتم وكان الله شاكرا عليما. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم وقل رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قالوا يا موسى إنا لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قاعدون. قال رب إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي فافرق بيننا وبين القوم الفاسقين. قال فإنها محرمة عليهم 40 سنة يتيهون في الأرض فلا تأس على القوم الفاسقين. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So continue with the story of the plight of Bani Israel and their movement towards Bilad al-Sham. which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised to grant them. However, when they reached over there, as we mentioned, they found the Amalika, a very strong and powerful people, and they when they were ordered to attack and enter into the city and attack them, they held back. And as we mentioned yesterday, so they said, as long as they're there, we're not entering. They leave, okay, fine. So, and then we mentioned that Sayyidina Yusha and Kalib, radiallahu anhuma, they were not prophets at that time, but they were the two followers or the two chieftains of Bani Israel who remained steadfast on their oath and their allegiance and their obedience. They were the ones, they were the Rajulani, they were the two who said that, oh my people, just go, enter, pick up the foot, pick up your one foot, you know, in Urdu, qadamutahu, pick up your foot and go. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to just do it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you victory. They said, what was their response? قالوا يا موسى إنا لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنها هنا قاعدون. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Now just imagine this. You see, now they've gone through all of these decades of sacrifice, and then ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Musa alayhi salam, and then they had been slaves, and the servants, the male children were slaughtered, their females were taken off and used by the Qibtis. And then ultimately Musa alayhi salam comes, and then with his tarbiyah and his training and his teaching, and then ultimately they're delivered from Egypt, and the sea is split into two, and they're delivered, and all of this takes place. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to fulfill his promise to give them this Bilad Sham and give them a wonderful sustenance and a beautiful place to remain and exist after all of those years of servitude. All they have to do is, the one test is just go and fight, jihad. So what did they say? They said, Ya Musa, inna lan nadkhula abadan ma damu fiha. Again they reiterate, O Musa, we're not going to ever enter in, never. We're never entering as long as they're there. So you and your Lord go and fight with them. We're not going to fight. So what do they mean by that? They mean by that there's no way that we're going to be able to fight with these people. So if you think you can go and your Lord will be with you and you can deal with them, then so be it. As for us, no way. Allahu Akbar. So this was now just imagine Musa alayhi salam after all of this, going through all of that with them, and then now here's their stance once again. Allahu Akbar. So now what does Musa alayhi salam, what does he do? So again, go you and your Lord. اذهب أنت وربك فقاتل. You and your Lord go and fight. إنها هنا قاعد. We are sitting here. This is very important because they say we are going to sit here. Okay? You want to sit here? Okay, you'll see. You'll be sitting here for the next 40 years. Allahu Akbar. So, Musa alayhi salam, just imagine. I mean, we can't even imagine, but I mean, now he's at this point where nobody's ready to follow him. He has got two, Yusha and Kadib, radiallahu anhu, alayhim as-salam. But who does he see in front of him? He sees in front of him himself and his brother Harun, because they're both prophets and they're both definitely going to be helped by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, قَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي لَا أَمْلِكُ إِلَّا نَفْسِي وَأَخِي. He says, oh Allah, I have no power over these people. I don't have any control except over myself and my brother Harun here. So فَفْرُقْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ الْقَوْمِ الْفَاسِقِينَ. So differentiate between these disobedient and we're trying to fulfill your orders and we're doing the best we can, So whatever you're going to do with them, but do with us what's suitable and appropriate for us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's response was, so now they said, we're going to sit here. okay, they will sit here now for 40 years. Yatihuna fil ard, yatihuna, they'll just wander around in there. So now that they don't want to enter there, so what do they want to do? Obviously they want to go back to Egypt, where they came from. And now Pharaoh is gone and his armies, and okay, it's ours for the taking. So now they take off in the morning and they head back toward Egypt, and by the end of the night they find themselves back at the same place where they started in the morning. This goes on for 40 years. So they wanted to sit over here, so they're sitting over there. So in the meantime, Musa and Harun are still with them, and that is the period of time in this tea. That's when, that the incidents of when they are, overpowered with thirst, and they said, "Oh, yeah, Musa, give us, we need water." And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Musa alayhi salam the command, strike this rock, and that rock used to go along with him. And he would strike the rock, and 12 springs, not one spring, 12 springs for each tribe. The clouds were kept over their heads, otherwise in the desert they would have been fried, The clouds were over their head, moving along with them. So even this time of tea, which was an era of punishment, but with the presence of Musa and Harun alayhi salam, and of course Yusha and Caleb, also those two obedient ones, and perhaps others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kept sending his barakat and khair, even though it was basically an open air prison. They couldn't get out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need walls and bricks and guards and CCTV. He just had them roaming around, for 40 years. And they say that whole area was anywhere between 30 to 90 miles long and maybe 7 to 20 miles wide. This was the radius of where they were wandering. And for 40 years. So perhaps ultimately the people who were the disobedient ones who refused and made those statements, they died off, that generation died off. And perhaps those who were left or the new generations realized their folly and did tawbah. And in the meantime, Harun alayhi salam dies, and then shortly after that Musa alayhi salam also dies. So they both die in that period. And therefore, their graves are really not known. Nabi Sallallahu saw the grave of Musa alayhi salam when he went for Isra in the Kathib al-Ahmar. There's a mound of red sand, sort of, and that's where they were. Nabi Sallallahu saw, but otherwise it's unknown where they passed away. So now the Khilafah is given to Yusha and Caleb. And Yusha alayhi salam, and they say that they were both made prophets, and they're both mentioned. Also, the biblical narrations are quite detailed about them. And in our tradition, he's called Yusha alayhi salam, and the Christian Bible in the Arabic, they call him Yeshua. But in any case, so ultimately, at the hand of Yeshua alayhi salam, and then as we heard also in the end of Surah Baqarah, when they ultimately did enter and fight with the Amalekah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened up the way for them. But it was quite an ordeal for quite a long time. And so therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned يَتِيهُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَلَا تَأْسَ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْفَاسِقِينَ. The last thing mentioned is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this sort of comforting statement to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. Don't be distressed. لا تأس على القوم الفاسقين. So whatever is being ordained for these people that they will have to, but don't become so much stressed. That's the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and don't let it be so heavy, on your heart. And obviously it would have been, because that's the hearts of prophets, that they have that compassion and love for their people and the hope for their rectification. And after seeing all of that, you can imagine his heart. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, be consoled, and what will come to pass by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ordained. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to recollect and to go over these stories and take the lessons therein. Ameen. Tuma'in wa akhir da'wana. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.